and welcome to another conversation between me and Miss Arya. She is an intern on my course, Short Fiction and Indian Literature. And the conversation that we are going to have is about Khuswant Singh's story, Karma. Hello, Arya.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
So, how was karma for you?
Karma is a very, very exciting story. The reason is that it's neatly structured. It's a story which is almost perfect in some sense. There is a proper beginning, a proper middle, and a proper end to the story. And it's almost as if Khuswant Singh is employing his theories about how a classic short story is to be on this particular writing that he has done. So it's very neat and with a proper twist at the end too. He always says that there should be a twist at the end of the story. He says that twist should be like a scorpion sting. It should sting either the readers, or it should sting somebody in the story, metaphorically speaking. So it's a perfect story, and I really enjoyed reading it, and I hope the readers will too. The readers on this course too will enjoy this story.
Ma'am, interestingly, the story is actually set in a railway station. So, can you elaborate on the use of the railway station, which is a public space, by Khuswant Singh in
Yeah.
Karma?
Yeah, it's very significant that the story is not set within some domestic space. It's actually a very, very public space, as you mentioned. It's also a transitory space. People move through that space. We see Sir Mohan inside a waiting room, which he's going to vacate very shortly, and we also see his wife outside the waiting room, and they all board the train in a short while. So the railway and the train is a very, very interesting setting, and it can have certain meanings in terms of the philosophy of the story. And in terms of karma, we can see all the divisions neatly played out. The divisions between Sir Mohan and his wife is neatly played out in the spaces that they occupy. One is inside, protected, within four walls of the waiting room, and the other is exposed, exposed to the weather. She's just outside, and she's having a conversation with a coolie, and that in itself tells you something about the power structure between the two. And then one occupies the first class compartment, the other occupies the zanana, which is lower in rank, and that zanana is usually occupied, or is it reserved? It's reserved entirely for the women. So as I said, the setting tells you a lot of ideological information, meaningful information about how these people see the world, right? So that setting has an important consequence for the entire story, and even it plays a functional role as well. The train plays a functional role in the narrative. It leaves somebody behind, and it takes away somebody with them. Somebody manages to reach the destination, and somebody doesn't manage to reach the destination, and the train plays the spoil sport in the case of Sir Mohan Lal.
Okay. Ma'am, in one of the most important instances in the story, like when Mohan makes a general comment on India after looking at the mirror, he talks like a foreigner. So, it is mentioned that he has just spent only 5 years at England. Does he really identifies himself with an Englishman, or is he pretending to be so?
Yeah. It's a two-part question. Let me address the first question first. That's about the mirror, right? And the comparison between the mirror and India itself. I'll read that relevant extract for the benefit of our readers and listeners. He says, on looking at the mirror, he says, "You're so very much like everything else in this country. Inefficient, dirty, indifferent," he murmured. The mirror smiled back at Sir Mohan. "You're a bit of all right, old chap," it said. "Distinguished, efficient, even handsome. That neatly trimmed moustache, the suit from Savile Row with the carnation in the buttonhole, the aroma of eau de cologne, talcum powder, and scented soap all about you. Yes, old fellow, you're a bit of all right." So this is a very interesting exchange between Sir Mohan and a mirror. the narrator imagines the mirror to respond to Sir Mohan. So this is almost a fantastic conversation happening between the two, isn't it? So when he makes certain comments about India using the figure of the mirror is not quiet. It responds, it talks back. And that tells you something about the narrator and the author of this particular story. And he says, oh yeah, yes, of course, I am inefficient, dirty, and all these things that you mention. You're all right. And that is said almost sarcastically. And the mirror makes all these specific comments about the suit from Savile Row, which is a street in London, which is very famous for, tailoring suits. And it says you have scented soap all over you, the aroma of scented soap and talcum powder. So you are okay. You seem to be all right. So that comment back, that sarcastic comment back from the mirror is a hint, somehow a hint about maybe the psyche of the narrator or the author who manages the story well, that things might be things might happen in such a way that this Sir Mohan might not get away with all these nasty comments that he makes about the state of this country. So this is a little bit of a stretch, but it tells you how things are going to work out, at some level.
Okay, ma'am, about Mohan.
Oh yes, Mohan. He spends about 5 years in the United Kingdom, in Great Britain, and he says he has spent about 45 years in this country, right? And at one point in the story, he makes a comparison between these two periods of his life in India and his life in the UK, and that's again a very, very interesting extract in the story. He says 5 years of a crowded, glorious life in Great Britain, in London, worth far more than the 45 in India, with his dirty, vulgar countrymen, with sordid details of the road to success, of nocturnal visits to the upper story, and all too brief sexual acts with obese old Lakshmi, smelling of sweat and raw onions. So he says that 5 years was glorious. The 5 years that he spent in London and Oxford was glorious compared to the sordid life that he has had for 45 years in India, with his life with his obese wife and all the other things. And even the road to success that he has achieved in India seems somehow stained, somehow tainted. Probably because he had to do a lot of underhand things in order to reach that position. We don't know. We can speculate again. So he doesn't have a very high opinion of his lengthy period in India, and he has a lot of high opinion for the brief stay. And he does identify himself with the English gentleman. He looks at India through English lenses, through British lenses. That's quite clear.
But at some point or the other, he actually tries. He picks up Times. He even brings up Scotch. So is it a kind of pretension?
Yes. He wants to behave as an English gentleman would do. For him, an English gentleman would be with his Times. For him, an English gentleman would sip Scotch. Would enjoy his alcohol, probably before boarding the train or even when he's on the train. So he does all these things because he believes that these are the embodiments or the accessories of a typical English gentleman. So which is why he is kind of fetishizing these things. Look at the number of times he has read the Times. He says so many times I've read this, but despite that he picks it up because he thinks that will attract the attention of the English gentlemen who in his perspective are obsessed with the Times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I think that Lakshmi is a foil to Mohan. Do you agree with this?
Yeah, she is. Yeah, absolutely. She is a complete foil to Sir Mohan. If you look at even physically, how is she physically?
He mentions that she's obese.
Yeah.
And like she somehow or the other, she appears to be very like dirty. She's wearing a dirty white sari.
Yes.
And she's chewing betel leaves. And at the end also, it's darting from the train.
The saliva, she spits her saliva from the train. It's all not the proper etiquette to to follow in public, especially. So she is completely unwholesome in his perspective, isn't it? And how is he, in contrast? He's perfect almost, with aroma about him, with nice suits, and he's never in a hurry. He's always very sedate. He walks in a measured manner. And there's a phrase which says he walks in a studied gait. It's as if he has studied how to walk. It's a walk that he has practiced. So all these again reminds me of the phrase that you brought up earlier, that his pretensions, right? He has a lot of pretensions, and these are some of them, and on the other hand, as we spoke just now, Lakshmi is the complete opposite, right? She enjoys the local stimulants, the Indian version of stimulants, the betel leaves, right? And even the chapati that she eats are crumpled chapatis, right? Nothing is in order.
Yeah.
Whereas for him, everything has to be in tickety-boo. Everything has to be neat, in order, right? And because that he thinks that's the way the English world runs, neatly, perfectly, in order, whereas it's chaos on the other side of it, right?
Okay. Khuswant Singh makes use of a third person narrator in Karma, but his description of an Indian setting or Indians in general appears to be seen through the eyes of a foreigner. So, do you think that it is a stereotypical representation of Indians in the story through a third person narrator?
Okay, so we do have a third person narrator in the story. So a third person narrator is a person who has complete knowledge of the world that he is describing, that he or she is describing, and this third person narration is from a person who doesn't participate in the story as well. Okay, so this third person knows about the consciousness of Sir Mohan. So the stereotyping that we receive about India are the stereotypes that Mohan has about India. So, and that stereotype is something that he has borrowed from the apparent consciousness of the English gentleman. So he sees India as he thinks the Englishman would see India. That could be the case, or that need not be the case. But he believes that that is the perspective of Englishmen, and he follows that particular perspective. And this third person narrator also knows about Lakshmi, and he describes her bangles, the diamond nose ring, and her desires to enjoy gossip, and all these other things. So the third person is not prejudiced, but he gives us the prejudices of the central character. So we need to look at it in that way.
Okay. Ma'am, for me, Lakshmi appears to be a very innocent woman who follows her husband despite him ignoring her.
Yeah.
So, can we say that there is a colonized equation that exists between Mohan and Lakshmi?
It's a very good question. That parallel is significant. I'll come to that in a minute. But let's go back to that. The idea of they traveling together within quotation marks. They are not literally traveling together in some sense. I am also surprised by this, fact that Sir Mohan brings her along. He doesn't like her company at all, right? So if you look at their domestic arrangement, how is it? How is the domestic arrangement?
It says that she is in the upper part of the house, and he'll just pay some nocturnal visits in court to her room, and it's just a kind of, what shall I say,
a functional
relationship that exists between them.
Yeah, absolutely. So they are physically distanced from one another, right? Despite all this distancing, it's very interesting that he brings her along. So that's a very that makes us wonder, why does he drag her along in his tours and travels. So that's a very interesting thing. And for the purposes of the narrative, it just shows how insensitive he can be to his wife. So the same logic that he has in dealing with his wife at home, he practices even when he is outside in the public spaces that he is in. So that colonized attitude is again a very interesting metaphor. And Lakshmi, if we go back to the context of the story, the socio-historical context of the story, this is pre-independence India that the story is set in, right? So in those periods, the relationship between husband and wife is usually seen as a master subject sort of relationship generally. And she passively accepts that hierarchical relationship, of course. And because of the socio-cultural and political context of the day, when India has been colonized and the British Empire is at its height, we can kind of extrapolate from this and say that the nation can be seen as the female in some sense, with the male being the masters, who are suppressing the colonizers, who are suppressing this particular nation. So that colonized relationship can be interpreted in several levels, but there is oppression of the female there.
And
Clearly.
she even refers to him as master.
Master, yeah, exactly. The literal term is used there. The master term is used there. And again, it can play a dual role. One is the husband is seen as the master, and the husband can also be seen as the kind of a colonizer figure who is, ruling over this nation, which is usually seen as a female landscape, right?
Ma'am, one of the remarkable aspects about narration of Karma, according to me, is the importance given to the minute actions of the character.
Okay.
So, how do you analyze the use of these actions? Like, does they contribute to the better understanding of the story?
Okay, so what are the minute or the specifics that you're interested in? What are the interesting specifics that we get from the story?
Like everything in general. Like we have Lakshmi sitting on a grey trunk. She's chewing beetle leaves, and she is speaking loudly to the coolie on one hand. On the other hand, we have Mohan sitting comfortably in a cane chair, taking out times. So, like, it's like we'll get a feeling that we are just watching them in front of us.
Yeah.
And that they do actually carry a lot of weight, because as I mentioned earlier, it will help us to picture Lakshmi as a foil to Mohan. So, how do you analyze these representations?
Absolutely, and the point that I really like about your thoughts here is the vivid manner in which the story world is brought to life before us. The cane chair and Lakshmi sitting on the trunk, which the coolie has put down, And the other thing that I want to add to your list is that the money that she gives the coolie, she takes a bit, and a bit from the, from the sari end, and then gives it to the coolie. That's the only one reference to money passing from a superior to an inferior, right? And Lakshmi is the one who offers the money. She pays the coolie who has offered service to her, and we don't see Mohan doing that, for whatever reason. And that's a very, very tender moment. It's a touching moment, because she returns. There's a gesture of paying thanks in kind there, and there is also a lot of egalitarian relationship between Lakshmi and those who are around her. She has a proper normal relationship, conversation with coolies. She enjoys a stroll. She eats in public. All these details, which kind of tells her how earthy, how down to earth that she is. She's part of the fabric of India, whereas he has a top down approach. He asks, "Hey, koi hai?" and then somebody comes running and then offers the the drink, and somebody carries the stuff and puts it in the compartment for him, and he doesn't return thanks, or there's no thank you there, in some way or the other. So it's a very superior inferior relationship that he has with the country, whereas she seems to be on a level playing ground with those who are around her. So again, the power dynamics becomes clear to us.
Okay, ma'am. Does the story actually stress the importance of sticking on to one's natural instincts? Because I think Lakshmi, who behaves very naturally, is rewarded at the end, whereas Mohan, who actually acts or pretends to be an Englishman, is actually, he is the one who's left out.
Yeah, it's a good question, and a complex question as well, because this phrase natural instincts is again complicated because what are the several natural instincts that are there in the story? One is gender, male, female, gender. She sticks to the Zanana, she's safe, right? She sticks to her social status, she is safe. She is very submissive, she's very passive. She's not a social climber,
Yeah.
unlike her husband, who is the social climber. He comes from a family which is probably illiterate, right? Because Lakshmi's relatives are all illiterate as well.
Yeah.
So relationships are made between equal families in those days, right? That's the general attitude. So perhaps he could have risen from rags to riches. He could have risen from a very humble beginnings and could have reached greater heights. He becomes a vizier and a barrister, high official. He won a scholarship, we don't know. Probably he studied out of somebody else's generosity, and he made it big. And he comes back with all those education and misguided notions. And if you remember the story, he says that he adopted the mannerisms of the upper classes. He doesn't adopt the mannerisms of the lower classes, the middle classes, the upper classes. And he kind of puts those class attitudes at play when he comes back. And which is why he chases away all the illiterate, relatives hanging about the house. And so there are a lot of complexities there. So that social climbing that he does creates problems in a colonial context. There's class, promotion, as well as it's complicated because of race and colonization. Because the outsiders, the foreigners, they don't acknowledge his rise. Race still is a crucial and a vital aspect of life. So he infringes on the rights, so-called rights and privileges of the upper class British society. Okay, so his being in the first class compartment is probably because he has earned his place. He has earned his place. As you say, he has paid the price of that particular ticket. He has every right to be there, but he still gets thrown out. And it's unfair to throw him out, right? It is unfair. So in that context, if we compare the relative security of the wife with the insecurity that he experiences and the brutality that he experiences, ultimately, even though he somehow deserved it because of his attitudes, it is also very sad to see him being thrown out of that position which he has rightly earned. In some respects, it's his country. The train is running in his country, and he gets thrown out even though he paid for it, right? Paid to be there. So it's a complex question.
Okay, I understand that. Can you comment on the use of various dialects or the use of language in karma and genre?
Can you pick out some of the references to the various dialects that we have?
Like we have him speaking in Oxford English to the soldiers, which almost like there is a reference that they for one instance they actually doubted whether they should trust their inebriated ears.
Yes.
Then there is a reference of him talking to his friends and his relatives in anglicized Hindustani. And he also calls the bear as koi hai, like to show his attitude. So I found these usages very interesting.
Yeah, quite right. So that Oxford accent misses its mark, as you said. He tries that accent on these drunken soldiers, and they can't trust their ears because they're drunk, so they think they mishear him. So they think that how can a native speak in such a language with such perfect accent, and so that is a failure. Language fails its effect there. And then we have so Mohan, as you said, speak in anglicized Hindustani, only certain words, right? Only those necessary words that he speaks to his inferiors, to the servants and to his wife, whom he kind of lumps together with all these inferior classes. And we have those soldiers talk in Hindi, right? Ekdam, get out, so this is reserved for the janta, and they say army, Fauj, and then they show the, uniform and things like that. So we have the intrusion or the interference of the local languages in this English language narrative there, and they have a specific functional purpose. They think that he doesn't understand English, and they adopt anglicized Hindustani there, and that's very ironical because he adopts the same anglicized Hindustani to his wife and to his inferiors, right? So that's a kind of an irony there.
The English soldiers in the story are named as Bill and Jim. They appear to be very common names in England. So, do you think that the writer intentionally made use of these names to stress on a universality of their attitude to Indians?
That's one way of looking at it. That's one way of looking. Very common English names, and they can stand for the English identity itself, a very brutish English identity, one that is drunken with power, symbolically speaking, right? We can extrapolate and say that of the English identity, the colonial identity itself, which is riding roughshod over the natives, which will not listen to reason. And then so that universality of this drunken colonial power is there, embedded in the identity of these two soldiers. And there's then also another version, another way of looking at it. They don't have their surnames. We just have Bill and Jim, right? They're probably working class. They're soldiers. Only the less well off were packed to India to do all these lower level jobs, which included being a soldier in the army of the empire. So there's also class at play, and if you notice the language, keep your ready mouths shut. The way they speak it is not Oxford English. It's very working class accent and a dialect, right? So that is also a very interesting class identity that Khuswant Singh gives these two English soldiers who behave nastily to the well-educated, Oxford-educated Sir Mohan Lal, Sir who has been knighted by the British administration and government. So there are lots of things at play. One is the universality, they can represent the British Empire itself, and the other is they are representative of their class position, which is working class, which is slightly stupid, and which doesn't listen to reason in some ways in their interactions with the superiors. They cannot discriminate. They are not very discriminative in terms of understanding the context, the various contexts at play. They're just blind. They just act bluntly, and they manhandle. That could be because of either the class position or because they think the natives are too low. They needn't be given the due respect. Okay. So several things are at play here.
Okay, ma'am. Can we say that Karma is a satire on English educated Indians, or is it a satire on Indian society as such?
It is a satire, obviously, yes, because the English educated native behaves in a condescending, presumptuous way, and he is insensitive to the local way of life, to the people who belong to this earth, and he totally disregards the life of India, the color of India, the flavor of India. Everything is beneath his contempt, right? Here on Indian soil. So and for that attitude he gets his reward, within quotes. He gets punished for that particular attitude, that supercilious attitude which ignores the life spirit of India itself, which is very which is about excitement, which is about bustle, which is about talking with lots of people from various walks of life, conversing with them, relating to them. So he does get his comeuppance for that. That's one thing. And it could be on a larger scale a satire on this entire generation which gets educated abroad and who fails to recognize the worth, the value of life back home.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be that too.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, I found the end of Karma to be very ironical. Like, we have Mohan being expelled from his first class compartment, whereas we have Lakshmi traveling like a queen in her zanana. So can you comment on the use of irony in the story?
Yeah, absolutely. So he does stick his wife in the third class, the zanana basically, and he doesn't even make sure whether she is properly seated there. He doesn't go by. She just finds her way, which is also very interesting because she's quite independent. She can get the help of a coolie, eat by herself, walk to the compartment, get into it, and she takes care of herself. She purchases all these betel leaves from a roadside vendor. So in that regard, she's quite independent, and that's very appreciable from a figure in that particular point of time. And then the class position that he occupies, he doesn't understand the complexities of that particular position. He thinks that he's educated, he has the money, so he can easily occupy that. He doesn't understand the problems that are underlying that particular class position in a country that is run by foreigners, that is managed by foreigners. So for that ignorance, he pays for it. The ignorance of the complexities of the class position is what kind of punishes him at the end of the story, because things are not black and white. There's no England and India, that kind of black and white is not there. India is kind of run by the British Empire, and that will not discriminate between Oxford educated natives and natives. For them, everybody is the same in some sense.
Ma'am, while Mohan was expelled from his first class compartment, the soldiers actually referred to him as a nigger.
Yeah.
So I found the use of word nigger to be very
Yeah.
significant. So can you comment on that?
Yeah. So that particular derogatory term is usually used to identify the black races from Africa, and they use the term. These two soldiers, drunk soldiers, use the term to call an Asian Indian by that term, right? That again tells you that they are not very discriminatory in their understanding of the various races. For them, a native is a black. Everybody is on the same level playing ground. For them, they are the boss. The white race is the superior race, and any other race which is not white is nigger, is black. They look at everybody in that color, and they discriminate them by the same identity. So that discrimination, be it a black African or be it an Asian Indian, that discrimination is to be condemned, right? And it's interesting that Khuswant Singh uses the soldiers, these working class soldiers, to punish this particular native who's theoretically an inferior, right, in their understanding of the scheme of things. So an inferior class is kind of attacking an inferior race. We should put all these inferior within quotes there. So an inferior class is attacking an inferior race. These soldiers are supposed to travel only by the second class. That's the class that they are supposed to travel in the train compartment in that particular historical point of time. But they occupy the first class by force. And they think they can do that because of their white identity. So between a competition between natives and second class white men, the second class white men win. So that's the battle that we have there.
So ma'am, we shall absolutely say that Mohan being expelled from his first class compartment is actually a parallel to the dislocation of Indians by the British.
Yes,
right,
yes, absolutely. And this throwing out of the train of Sir Mohan also reminds me of another figure, a famous figure who gets thrown out of trains.
Mahatma
Can you?
Gandhi.
Yes. So Mahatma Gandhi again was thrown out of the trains because he was not supposed to occupy the first class compartment, even though he paid for it, right? So that's why I also see this brutality that Sir Mohan suffers in a tragic way too. That is the tragedy brought out by colonization, and the native who is not very, very clear about his position in the grand scheme of things will be damaged or injured in some sense by the instruments of empire. So these soldiers are the instruments of empire, right? And for them, the white race gives them a lot of power, even though theoretically they have their own position in the hierarchy.
Ma'am, I'd also like to look at another parallel in the story. We have interclass compartment on one hand and Zanana on the other. Can we say that they actually stand as a parallel to England and India at that point of time?
Yeah, it's a good comparison again. Comparing the spatial difference here and the class difference, and comparing Indian identity with the English identity, and India itself with England. Yeah, it's a good comparison. And Sir Mohan thinks that he represents the English identity. He thinks he speaks for England. He is kind of somehow associated with England, and Lakshmi is the one who is associated with India and the Indian identity. And that is broken. That fantastic idea is broken, destroyed, decimated at the end when the soldiers put him in place and say, okay, no, you cannot be an interloper That's what their behavior tells us. They tell him, you cannot be an interloper, you have to go back to your place in the scheme of things which we have laid out on the Indian subcontinent. So he has been taught a lesson in that respect. So there are polarities, ideological polarities between classes, between nations in the colonial context, right? And even if you look at the first class compartment and the Zenana, one is near the engine, the first class compartment is near the engine, and the Zenana interclass is at the tail end of the train near the guard, right? So there's a lot of distance between the two. And it also reminds me of Rudyard Kipling's that poem from 1889, and it says, east is west and west is west, and never shall the twain meet. And that seems to be the case here, in some respects, when race is at play, when colonization is at its peak. So this native tries to kind of go over to the other side, but then he's put back in his place and thrown out of the position that he seeks to occupy. And the other funny thing is that he seeks for help. He asks for help, right? He shouts for the guard, but the guards never come. The guards are near the Zenana. They cannot come when he needs the help. So it's a very ironical situation that he finds himself in. His language doesn't work. His cries for help doesn't get realized again. So he's totally helpless in that regard.
Okay. Ma'am, about the title, karma. Like, when we think of the word karma, or when we hear the word for the first time, we'll think of it in a religious or philosophical terms. So, how apt is such a term to actually describe a story which is set in a social or public space, to describe the social reality of India in the pre-independence era?
Yeah. So karma is in some sense, it's a very, very apt title. So as you said, in religious terms, karma means, the actions of your past life will determine your present or your future lives, right? So if you do bad, bad things will happen to you in the future. If you do good in your past life, good things will happen to you. And within the universe of this particular story, the past of Sir Mohan Lal, or his present as well, where he behaves in such a supercilious manner to his servants and to the native folk, kind of decides his future, which happens at the end of the story when he gets thrown out. So he is paying for the mistakes of his present in that future at the end of the story, when he is thrown out, and his wife spits outside of the window of the train, of the moving train. So there seems to be a nice poetic justice sort of thing happening in the story, and he pays for it. He pays for the attitudes, but then we should also remember that from the point of view of socio-cultural and historical perspectives, this is a man who has been knighted by the British government, so we can see where his loyalties are. So his loyalties are with the British Empire. His loyalties are with the English gentleman. And if you remember, when he sees the two British soldiers in the story, he says, okay, they can occupy only the second class, but if they want to occupy the first class, I will intercede with the guard. I will speak to the person who comes checking. So he thinks that he can safeguard the Englishmen against the authorities. So he always sees him as being on that powerful side, the white side, and for that attitude he gets his comeuppance, he gets his reward at the end when the train leaves him on the platform and he's speechless. He's a man who's known for his conversations, right? And he wants to show his conversational ability to the Englishmen. And that is ironical. That end when he's totally speechless, when the Times is lying beside him and his wife is, on that moving train, when she's moving ahead and he's left behind, is a nice, ironic ending for this particular story.
Okay, ma'am. That's it, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Arya, for your questions, and I hope you enjoy this conversation as well. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next session.